JD, wait. You don't even need to apologize to me for that because I have misheard so many things in my 58 years. And today is a perfect example of me misattributing something you wrote to Jeff Maples. It happens. I don't need an apology from you.
Sure.
I get it. It's a mistake.
To clarify, if I could make the point,
Make the
so
point,
that
please.
people understand Jeff Maples, because I feel as though you've characterized him in a particular way that's not in the best of light. I get it. That's what you do, and that's also what we do, and that's your complaint towards Jeff. So there's some irony there. I've preached with Jeff out on the streets. The man preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ, the death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord and Savior for the forgiveness of our sins. And it's not a, God hates so and so line. It's the true gospel. So hopefully we can agree that we're disagreeing among brothers. But when I look
Absolutely.
at what Jeff Maples wrote in that post, he did summarize Wilson's statement in a way that I understand you don't like. But I have followed Wilson for years. I almost wrote a post about some pro-gay comments he made last week. I told my family as soon as he killed himself. I happened to find this out around the family devotional that evening. And I said, I'm so thankful that I didn't write that post about Jarrid Wilson and his pro-gay comments last week, or else someone might attribute his suicide to criticism that he has
Yep.
received. So
Right.
I was thankful. I was thankful that I didn't. And so what you need to understand when you look at a post at, say, Reformation Charlotte or Pulpit and Pen, not every article can contain every bit of information that we have about someone, and you may need to use the search function to get the full impression, just like that which was written by Brandon Ambrosino. By the way, I completely agree with your assessment of what's happening at Liberty University. I wrote about Ambrosino years ago. So since 2013, he's been dogging Jerry Falwell. So
Right.
I wrote a post after this latest Politico piece, and I said, remember the source. Remember that this is a gay activist. He hates Christianity, although he claims to be a Christian. He hates what we would consider to be authentic Christianity. He's aligned himself with the most extreme leftists, and that doesn't necessarily make us discount the information that he's provided, but there's nothing that he provided new in that Politico article. That's what I wrote about. We've already covered the photographs. We've already covered the real estate deals that appear to be cronyism, but there's nothing new here. And so this is a political hit piece. Remember that when you take that into account. Julie Roys, who you may or may not be familiar with,
Met her. Yes.
commented. Okay, so Julie, who's a lovely lady, commented to me, and she said, I didn't see some of those claims you made supported in the article with facts or with links or hyperlinks. And I explained it's because I've written so much about Ambrosino over the years and so much about Liberty University over the years. If I included everything in a single article about an individual for someone to have a full perspective, it would be so long no one would want to read it. It's like the Ambrosino piece. It just went on and on and on and on. But most people, we call that in the blogging business TLTR, too long to read.
Yep. Right.
And a blog is it's a different form of communication than a full-length article in a typical journalistic piece. It's not as long. And so when we're weighing that into consideration, some pro-LGBT comments he's made over the years, then it would be, in my opinion, a safe summarization of his intent, talking about homosexuals going to church, loving Christ, showing the love of Christ, when it's impossible. Because 1 Corinthians 6 says that is what some of you were. They leave these things behind when they're being conformed to the image of Jesus Christ through the gospel.
JD, that my issue is with the headline. The gay Christians in quotes bugs me to death. It implies that Jarrid Wilson stated that gay Christians show the love of Jesus more than straight Christians. He can call that a paraphrase, but that's not what he said. He said he knew people who are gay and go to church. That is not the same as saying I know people who are Christians and gay. I know people who are sinners exceedingly, who go to church, who believe themselves to be believers in Jesus Christ and a part
Yeah.
of the family of God, who would call themselves Christians, who are in church every Sunday, and they are not Christians. Um,
I have
so
two brief questions for you, real quick. The first one is, do you think the ones to whom he's referring, the homosexuals who are attending church and think they're showing the love of Jesus to people, do you think those people consider themselves to be gay Christians?
absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
The second,
I can't get into their heads, but if you ask them, they would say, "Yes, I'm a gay Christian," and then they would give you all of their twisted biblical reasoning for why they believe they could be gay and
all
Christian.
right. So I would just ask that we take that into consideration. Secondly, you know what he said. You know the full quote. You know his words. Did you read them inside Reformation Charlotte's article, or did you have to research them outside Reformation Charlotte's article?
I clicked the link that Reformation Charlotte provided to the archived original piece that was written by Jarrid Wilson and read the entire context, which is where I surmised, JD, that the context of Jarrid Wilson's piece was about the vitriol, the hatred that many so-called Christians like, and he doesn't reference Westboro, but he has Westboro in mind. That many so-called Christians are using as they engage with people who are gay and unbelievers, or who are, and I'm surmising here, gay and believe themselves to be Christians, because he says, while we show love and grace, we still have to stand by biblical truth. And I haven't read enough of Jarrid Wilson's other articles on this stuff, but I'm surmising that what he means by biblical truth is what the Bible clearly says about monogamous marriage, about marriage between a man and a woman, sexual
Right. And
union being between men and women.
our much more lengthy research to Wilson would probably lead us to a different conclusion. I understand that wasn't all provided in the article, but you know what he said because of a link provided by Reformation Charlotte. And my point is, if Jeff was trying to intentionally slander someone or take someone out of context, he wouldn't have provided a link to the primary source and like hyperlinked it in a different
Right.
color for people to be able to click on that and research that for themselves. Sometimes
I
headlines are truncated and summarized. I mean, you don't have the full body of context in a title. It seems to me that if you want to have a legitimate complaint, it would make more sense to complain about a clickbait headline as opposed to lies or slander, because he provided the information that you needed for you to click on and find out exactly what he said and, in your opinion, what he meant.
Well, but in my opinion, what he meant, he interpreted Jarrid Wilson's words. And what Jarrid Wilson clearly said was, I know people who are gay who go to church. That is a far cry from Jarrid Wilson saying, I know gay Christians.
Does it
Um,
help inform your perspective that it was Jonathan Merritt who set up the fund for his family? That he's one who's running closely with a known homosexual journalist and who just left evangelicalism, by the way, Jonathan
well,
Merritt.
I know Jonathan Merritt, and in my previous life on radio, JD, Jonathan Merritt, before all of this stuff about him, it became very apparent that and now he's apostatized. I would rely on Jonathan Merritt lots. I don't know what Jonathan Merritt's present apostasy, what his present associations, and now his setting up the fund to help the family has to do with Jeff creating a headline and putting in quotes "gay Christian" and attributing, at least appearing to attribute the words "gay Christian" to Jarrid Wilson, when nowhere in that particular hyperlinked article within Jeff's piece does Jarrid Wilson come anywhere near saying that gay Christians show the love of Jesus more than straight Christians. He said, "I know people," and I think I know what Jarrid Wilson is trying to say there. I think he's trying to be oxymoronic. He's saying, why is it that gay people show more love and grace than Christians sometimes do? I think that's all Jarrid Wilson is saying there. Now, look, JD, you have done the research on Jarrid Wilson. You have read far more of Jarrid Wilson's pieces, and I am more than willing to defer to you and your wisdom on this, because you obviously have the source material. I'm I'm only going on this particular piece, and I'm saying Jeff Maples and Reformation Charlotte. And I'll tell you what the antagonism for me was is the whole suicide is apostasy thing, followed up with Jarrid Wilson commits suicide, and before he does, he says, gay Christians show the love of Jesus more than straight Christians do.
Can I tell you a backstory behind that nobody else
Yeah,
knows? Can I give you an exclusive tip here? So
sure.
Jeff contacted me and a few others, and he said, I feel like I want to write this post. I don't know if I should or not because of the timing. And we've taken heat in the past for writing articles shortly after someone's death. We did so with Billy Graham. We did so with Rachel Held Evans. And we actually thought about that and prayed about it and considered it before he did that post. And I didn't help him write it. I don't, and to be honest, I haven't even thoroughly read it up to this point. So I'm responding. The only reason I called is because you misattributed a quote to
Right.
me that I wanted to
Sure.
clarify. I didn't know
By
the time I got on the phone that you had taken that back already.
Right, but I'm going to give you a chance to speak to the pulpit and pen quote that I misattributed.
Yeah, that'd be great. The point is, there is a tendency in evangelicalism to do this, what I call justification by death. And that is, when someone dies who is troublesome theologically, they have a tendency to immediately be preached into heaven and to be treated heroically. And we saw that with Rachel Held Evans, who I don't believe was a friend of God. And there aren't very many people willing to say that. To quote the book of Ecclesiastes, that where a tree falls, and I can't speak for you, neither do I want to psychoanalyze you, but I believe that for many people, part of the resistance towards what Jeff has written is the timing of the post. And I can only be reminded of Jesus in the book of Luke when they came and told him that the tragedy befell those in the temple whose blood was shed and the Tower of Siloam fell, and he used it as an opportunity to say, yea, and ye likewise, unless you perish. And so this is an opportunity to preach the gospel in season and out of season. And Jeff ends each post with the gospel. And so that's why I just take a little bit of exception with the Sanhedrin part, because I feel like the argument here is primarily over the title, not necessarily the substance of the article. You had the link provided for you to do further research. You came to the right conclusion. And that's why, to me, it seems like you're swallowing camels and straining at gnats on this particular issue.
But JD, when I take issue with the article because the headline clearly misrepresents what Jarrid Wilson said in the hyperlinked piece, and frankly, so does the article itself. It emphasizes something that Jarrid Wilson wasn't emphasizing. The headline that Reformation Charlotte Jeff Maples put on that piece would lead the reader to believe, if all they read was the headline, and frankly, if all they read was the piece that Jeff Maples wrote, that Jarrid Wilson wrote a piece advocating that it is possible to be both gay and Christian. Jarrid Wilson didn't write a piece like that. Jarrid Wilson wrote a piece that said, as we engage with the gay community, can we show some love and grace? That's what I took away from the piece that Jarrid Wilson wrote. And I think it's been completely misrepresented by what Jeff Maples, how he characterized it, both with his headline and in the piece.
That's what you subjectively took away from it. What others would take away from it, particularly if they're aware of how the gay Christian movement works, and they've paid attention to the slide and the drift of those who like Jen Hatmaker, for example, or Tony Campolo. When we look at their drift, they begin by saying things like, I know Christians who better represent Christianity than most Christians that I know. Or I know gay people that better exemplify the love of Christ than those that are not. And then
it's become a canard.
Information regarding Wilson, we know where this is headed. So it's a summary. And it is difficult, I'll grant it, in blog writing, which is a unique form of media, to separate facts that are presented along with hyperlinks to primary sources and the opinion of the article, of the author. So
Well,
I would view it more charitably than you, along with the background of the things that we know about Jarrid Wilson.